This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law. I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey, y'all, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast. I'm Molly.
Hi, I'm Pam.
And if you haven't already, we would love it if you would please like and subscribe. We love all of our listeners, and we'd love to hear from you, whether it's commenting on a case that we've already discussed, or maybe you have an idea for one that we should cover. We want to hear from you because there's always a what the feezy case, and that's what we like to cover here on Gulf Coast Confidential. Those things that make you go, what? Why? What the feezy?
Did I just hear that right?
I know, because people never cease to amaze us right here on the Gulf Coast and anywhere these cases bubble up, right here along beautiful Northwest Florida and well beyond the Gulf Coast, because we don't got the market on what the feezy.
Nope, and we're reaching out all over the place.
That's right. Okay, well, today's episode is called Epic Fail. Ex-Marine and Joyce Meyer bodyguard Chris Coleman fails to protect his own family. In 2009, Chris Coleman, the head of security for televangelist Joyce Meyer, was convicted of murdering his wife, Sheri, and their two young sons, y'all, 11-year-old Garett and 9-year-old Gavin. The prosecution said he strangled them with a cord while they slept, then spray painted in red obscenities and promises of threats fulfilled on the walls over their bodies to throw investigators off the trail. That he killed them because they say he wanted to keep his high-paying job working for Joyce Meyer and because he wanted to be with his sexy mistress and his wife's high school friend. We'll have more on that in just a minute, but first we want to do a quick update on a couple of other cases that we are following, including Nancy Guthrie. I mean, gosh, I should say, what a sad situation that continues to be. Still no answers. And Savannah Guthrie announcing she's going to be heading back to the Today Show, but still 57 days and counting as of when we recorded this, with no arrests, no confirmed sightings, no answers, and the family all but saying, we know she's probably gone, but we still want answers. And they feel like it's going to come from the area where she disappeared, the Tucson area, in and around her own neighborhood.
Right. There are all kind of different things. And there has been kind of this clumsy miscommunication. We're going to tell everything. We're not going to tell everything. I mean, this is not, I hope this isn't people's first time handling a big case like this. You know, I mean, it happens all the time. And if you don't know what to do, ask another sheriff or community that's been through it and ask for their help.
What a novel idea, Pam.
Yeah.
Asking someone else. You mean a big, strong man asking for help?
Another big, strong man? Or how about the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation?
I know. They have just years and decades of institutional knowledge to tap into, and hopefully they will tap into that and are tapping into that locally as well as federally, and they'll find some answers. But it is hard. I have to say my heart has gone out to her all along, but when Savannah was talking about in a recent post that she felt like she really prayed about it and was asking the Lord for some answers, because she's made no secret that their family, including their mom, were, God-fearing people and really loved the Lord, had a personal relationship. And so she was praying about it and just asking for answers. She's like, Lord, I can accept it that she's gone, but it's hard. The not knowing is just so difficult. And he said, she's with me.
Yeah.
Wherever she is.
Mm-hmm.
And that really struck with me because I know my mom went through her own trauma when she was a kid. And I remember her talking about losing her second daughter when she was just under 2 years old. And it was due to a tragic accident, but the pain of it was just excruciating. And she talked about that and said that she prayed and was like, Lord, why did you take her? I just miss her so much. I ache for her. I just want to be with her. It would make me feel so much better, take some of this pain away. And he said, that I'm the only thing standing between you and her.
Oh, wow.
That she's right here. And so when I heard those words from her, to me, that sounded like a real word from the Lord, if you will, as far as what your faith may be and whatever, you feel like you're seeking comfort. That to me sounded like a familiar refrain.
Right,
if you
right.
will.
And I mean, just having to go through anything for 56 days, even if it's pleasant, just
no
doing
doubt.
the same thing over and over and over with uncertainty seems like that's what messes a lot of our minds up, or why, even like with my sister's murder, I've said before, if she fell out of an airplane, it would be easier for me to accept that than someone just for no reason whatsoever savagely killed her. Or I can't think of anything more horrible than when something happens to your family and you couldn't help them or protect them. We all kind of beat ourselves up for that. And then to take it further, I have to stop my brain sometimes. The fact that you're thinking, I don't know where my mommy is, or my mother, my 80-something-year-old mother out in the desert. Somebody's got her. Lord help. What are they going to? She's probably in her bedclothes, or I don't know where my child is,
Right.
or my loved one, any loved ones. And then when she went on the Today Show to do a little interview with Hoda Kotb, so she came back to kind of fill in for Savannah. Well, there's always the people that she didn't do that right. She didn't mourn right.
I'm so glad they weighed in.
Yeah.
She'll just get off TV from now on. She won't talk about her mommy anymore. Thank you so much for pointing out how you feel like she did.
Right.
Performance-wise.
Right. Oh, and that's exactly what somebody said. That was performance theater. And I'm
that's
like,
crap.
How do you know? And it makes me want to cry. It really does, because have you lost your mommy in that terrible way, or any way that was terrible? Most of these things, I still can't explain my feelings to people sometimes going through a murder or anything that I've been through horrible. I just know, like you said, I had to get to the point where I quit asking why, because there's no good reason why. And that's what I think Savannah's at. And sort of like what you said, your mom said, I'm like, I know God loves my loved one more than I do, and that's a whole lot. So, if people don't have faith, I do not know how they get from point A to point B.
Yeah, I don't either. And we certainly pray for her and her family that they do get those answers. And it is easy for people to maybe judge whether it's intentionally and they're acidic about it, or it's unintentionally and they still care. All we know is what we know.
Yeah.
And so we're putting ourselves in the position of a situation that we've never been in if we've never lost someone in circumstances like that. And it's easy to judge how you might react in that situation. But the reality is you might react completely like they're reacting, or you may not. And I'll say this as a final comparison. I've heard so many stories of those families that lost children in the Sandy Hook school shooting. And then we had all those terrible lies that were spread about the fact that people were saying this shooting never happened, and these families were grandstanding and doing this for attention. And the very day that it happened, or maybe it was the next day, but it was extremely close to when the shooting happened. And this father that sort of led, particularly the parent reaction to the media that night, and the camera caught him right before he got up there and spoke, and he was smiling. And I saw an interview with him, and how a couple of these extreme people were criticizing him for that reaction, saying, "Look, he's theater, he's performing. Why is he smiling? This is just I'm going to interpret this as truth that it never happened, and he was just this conspiracy guy." And he talked about how, and so many of them talked about how they got death threats, how they had objects thrown through their window, how they were followed, how they were stalked. And he was ridiculed for that reaction. And he said, I was nervous. He said, I'd never been in that situation before. He said, I was horribly torn apart. I was grieving. I was mortified. He said, and then you're about to get up before the camera, and somebody, I think, asked him a question or whatever, and he was just responding like he would naturally in a natural conversation. And yet it was interpreted as, you've made all this up? You didn't lose your child to this horrific crime and this shooting? So I don't know. That's an extreme example, but I think in light of what poor Savannah Guthrie and her family are going through, it's just easy to judge and think, gosh, let me apply so much meaning to their reaction. And I'm the first to jump in and wonder about those things too. Like, well, why did so-and-so do that? Why did they make that expression? But the bottom line is we just don't know until we're in that situation.
We know so little about what each other are going through. And that's one thing. Giving someone grace and the space that they need is about the kindest thing ever, because judging people, in my opinion, is the furthest thing from love. And, you have to make assessments. You have to see what's safe and not safe and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, just bottom line it, her mother is out there somewhere.
I know.
And her sister's mother and her brother's mother, and people that loved her.
Yes.
So we really haven't ever seen anything like this.
No, we haven't, and it's still unfolding. And Savannah will return to the Day Show on April 6th, so we'll look forward to seeing her back on the set and praying that their family gets some answers. And also, of course, we want to update another case that we mentioned last time, talking about the Duggars. And Joseph Duggar and Kendra Duggar, his wife, were arrested related to two separate cases. Joseph was arrested for lewd and lascivious behavior involving a child over in Panama City back in 2020. They were on vacation in Florida when this alleged activity happened. And then his wife and him are facing charges for separate case in the town where they're from in Arkansas. Basically, one family member was saying off the record that it looked like it could be potentially related to some locks that they had on the doors of their kids. So those are details that are continuing to come out. But there was a little bit of an update with Kendra, right?
A little bit. Kendra, the kids have been taken from Kendra and Joseph. And keep in mind, Joseph's offense is a hands-on offense. Josh, the brother before him, was what they call a hands-off offense. It was child, as they say, pornography type of thing. We have to be so crazy about the words that we say on here. But that was a no hands. And then Kendra, they say that this family with Jim Bob and Michelle, the parents, that they keep people in line. So, Jill and the cousin, and there's a few of them in there that have stepped out on their own. But so basically, just like with Josh and Anna, the family swoops in, the huge family, like a small town, swoops in and says, we think for you now, we do this, you act this way, blah, blah, blah. Well, Kendra's in hiding right now, and I'm sure it's because Jim Bob and them got her the house, see who can communicate with her. But she needs to be very, very careful, because if they're getting the kids and this, that, and the other, she may not get her kids back if they've told you no contact with those children. And it's so interesting. I've been listening to this. Listen to the phone calls between Kendra and Joseph, and she said something about, nobody knows where I am. And he said, praise the Lord. I mean, I'm the first one to praise the Lord and stuff, but he said, I've been reading my Bible and doing this, that, and the other. Broski, if you were doing all that before, you wouldn't be doing all this other stuff that you've done.
If you listened closely, God would have been like, don't diddle a kid.
Yeah, exactly. And your brother, follow your brother's in prison now, but also, it's just so weird.
It's totally weird.
It's just weird.
Well, and I read that basically that was a tactic that the parents had taken when there were concerns that their sons were sneaking into the rooms of the daughters. So they put locks on everybody's doors where they couldn't get out or in, per se.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you got to get to the point where you're locking your kids away from each other, there are deeper, far more serious issues that need to be addressed.
Oh, exactly. And they said the house was filthy and all kind of other stuff going on. And even they, they're brilliant. The mom and dad are brilliant at getting the girls and boys that marry into that family to almost disown their families.
Sure, to be a part of the cult, because that's how you get paid.
Right. So it's a hot mess, but those calls are very interesting.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what else we learn. And it's sad for those victims, and we certainly support them and hope that they get the help that they need too.
6 years ago, so if people think you're getting away with this kind of stuff, you're not. If you own a business and you're doing this kind of stuff, you're doing this to kids on vacation or what have you, what's done in the dark comes to light.
Absolutely. And I'm not trying to think like a prosecutor, but if he got caught doing this, what else hasn't he gotten caught doing?
Yeah.
So at any rate, lots to uncover there. And now back to our main topic, the Chris Coleman murder case, Joyce Meyer's bodyguard who was convicted of murdering his entire family. And we want to remind everybody as we dive into this discussion that we're going to have a little hiccup here and there recounting this or any case that we cover. And we're glad to go back and clarify. We want you to let us know when we've hiccuped, if you will. But please know that it's not intentional. And with this case, as in every case that we cover, it's about the spirit of telling it from the victim's point of view. So if we do hiccup, know that it is not our intention to undermine the truth of any situation or misrepresent. We are simply telling the story to the best of our ability with the facts that we have and hoping to tell it from the victim's point of view as to what they went through and what their experiences were.
Right. And we don't take exception to people maybe having a different take or point of view. We just have to be respectful, because all that, trolling and doing crazy stuff, I don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've seen our share of it.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you right now, I don't do it.
Yeah, no, I love it. I appreciate it. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, just for those folks who aren't familiar, a real quick little recap. So this case begins on the morning of May 5th, 2009. Sheri and her sons, Garett and Gavin, were found strangled to death in their beds in Columbia, Illinois. For months prior to this family's murders, they had reportedly received threatening emails and letters warning them to quit the ministry that they were in or face death. Now, remember that Chris was a bodyguard for Joyce Meyer, so it was aimed at that ministry. And when investigators went to the scene, they found this vulgar graffiti spray painted in red throughout the house, seemingly to frame an intruder who had done this. So that's where we're going to pick up if you're not familiar with this case. So it's interesting to me when I was reading up on it. I thought, it does remind me of other cases that we've covered, including Chris Watts. You mentioned Jordan Henning and how he basically got a slap on the wrist, in my opinion, for killing his wife, Ashley Henning. But it's these, in our take, these narcissistic men, completely self-involved. They look at their partners as interfering with the life that they want to lead. So instead of saying, hey, I need to make take responsibility for my choices and make changes that are in line with what I want and are fair to my family, it's let me take you out and build the life that I want.
Exactly.
Because I'm owed. Or in this case, this guy thought, my wife's interfering with God's destiny for my life.
Right. Because I can't go away with Coco Yokomoho over there,
Yeah, because I can't be with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
What a
and I'm
weirdo.
married and stuff because I might lose my job with Joyce Myers, which that is not true. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But Chris and Sheri were both in the military. He was in the Marine Corps. He went in the Marine Corps right after high school. And she was in the Air Force. And she was an MP, or military police, and he was a canine handler.
And she was fun and bubbly and cute, just cute as could be.
Right. The son. That's what people always say about folks. She was like the son. So he was kind of clumsy socially and awkward, and he's just kind of, his feelings, I think, scared him. So, and they said he was uber sensitive sometimes and then not and everything, but he's a nice enough person. He was clean cut and didn't cuss and stuff. His parents, who are going to turn out to be some weirdos, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And this is my opinion.
Yeah.
And so Ron and Connie are his parents. And Coleman. And they basically act like he was the joy of their life and he could never do anything wrong. And they said when Sheri was brought home by Chris, they said, well, I wasn't really too impressed with her to begin with. She's just a little blonde girl, like that with these short shorts on and this, that, and the other. And
she was too much in the world, he said.
Yeah.
I got told that before.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I wore a short skirt when I was 14 and got told I was too much in the world. And I'm like, well, not as much as I want to be, apparently. I mean, I tease, but I just couldn't stand being told what to do.
Yeah. Well, that doesn't work out, does it? People leave me alone. But so they did that. And so he met her in the canine conference or something somewhere. So they like each other and they go off and get married. And so that's when
she was pregnant at the time, right?
Yeah. That's why they got married. Even his dad, that's the pastor, said that's why they got married. They think they're so cute and funny and laughing at the weirdest and
it's because they secretly blame her for everything, is what it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
Barely
Eventually
secretly.
They do. Yeah. So they were pregnant with Garett, the oldest son, and then 2 years later comes along Gavin. So we got this little, for lack of a better word, you look at their little pictures, and they look like a Ralph Lauren ad, because the boys are so cute and she's so pretty and he's just there, get out of that picture, But I mean, he was so outkicked his coverage day one, She was so pretty. And so he wanted her to stay at home with the kids and be a homemaker.
Well, and she became saved. I mean, by all accounts, she was, once they got married, she gave her heart to the Lord. She became very active in the church that they started attending. And for as much as his parents disdained her and looked down on her and judged her, she was far more the Christian than he ever thought about being, in my opinion, based on behavior and commitment and loyalty to family, just trying to live and abide by biblical values. She demonstrated that. Whatever she felt, he did whatever he felt, and it was his parents in the corner going, yeah, whatever you need to do, it's okay.
Yeah.
And it was awful what he was doing.
Oh, when we flip it over, it's so awful, and I can't even believe that. Y'all aren't going to believe that. Well, and then she also, like you said, walked the walk. She set up parties for people, like different things at the church.
Activities for the church, yeah.
And she literally would go out and buy blankets and pillows and stuff and go take them to the homeless folks. She even, listen to this, in this day and time, set up a ministry to go to a leper colony.
I know. I saw that. It blew my mind.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And I reread that again going, no, did they say leper? Not leopard. Either way.
A leper colony, sign me up.
Well,
I would.
Either way is a little bit interesting to me. Leper colony. Because I only see that word when I read the Bible. And I'm just like, and everybody wants to stay away and stuff. And here's this little beam of sunshine going, you know what? We're going to go do this. I mean, put your money where your mouth is. But see, he was selfish with his money. He
resented all that spending she was doing.
Yeah.
And he didn't want any debt. I mean, nobody wants credit card debt, but she was doing a lot of spending to help the church, to help these different causes. And you're right, none of it. He just wanted to find reasons to pick on her and not like her, complain about her.
Oh, yeah. But he basically didn't want anybody else talking to her or anything. So I think all that kind of stuff when they were married and then his parents not liking her, that put a strain, and they're in every decision he makes. Like he's got to go back and talk to him, mommy, daddy.
He's a titty baby.
Yeah, he really is. Yes, he is. When you read this, he was a Marine. I do not know one Marine that will be caught talking the way this one is when the police were done. He said, I don't know. And then he's like, she was alive when I left, I think. So, I mean, I was just like, shut the hell all the way up.
I know. When I read that, I was like, come on. How do you murder your family, leave, and be like, well, I called her and that's my alibi. She didn't answer.
Right.
And like, you don't normally do that. That's not part of your pattern. If this was like something you did every single day where you left the house at 5:30 in the morning, called to get her up to get the kids out of bed while you went to go work out for the 18 millionth time that day, or the first of the 18 millionth times. And then he calls her when he comes back and then calls the cops. Like, what that is to me just as ridiculous as it can be. Like, it just screams I'm guilty.
Yeah. Well, how dumb does he think everybody is? Just because he is. But that was on really just because you're dumb. But 5/5/2009.
Yeah.
Now on 5/4/2009, he worked all the time with Joyce. His parents knew Joyce Meyer.
Oh wait, hold that thought, because that's a good cliffhanger, if you will. I love Joyce Meyer and listening to her, and I think it's kind of cool that he worked for her. But dang, boy, she sure got a handful with him.
Oh, she did. She did.
Who knew this was coming? But just real quick, we got to give a shout out, as always. We are so appreciative of Joe Zarzar, personal injury attorney here in Pensacola with Zarzar Law. They represent victims just like we do right here on our podcast, and we appreciate them for being a supporter of the show. He's a personal injury attorney right here in Pensacola, but he covers cases throughout Alabama as well as Florida, representing people who've been hurt through no fault of their own, or perhaps their loved one has, whether it's a car accident, a slip and fall, a medical malpractice case, a terrible car accident. In fact, he's represented a woman who recently was convicted and sentenced for hitting a man on a motorcycle while she was driving drunk on Pensacola Beach. She drug his body for some distance. He had a young wife at home. They were expecting a child. He was a young man. And it was just brutal. I mean, any death like that is sad and disturbing, but it was especially heartbreaking considering the tragic and gruesome details of this. And she ended up receiving, I think, like 27 years in prison. So
she did.
The widow of the young man that was killed hired Joe to represent them in that case, to get to the bottom of what happened and to help her find a way to continue on, because this was an important person in her life, the baby's father, her husband. That's a loss of income. That's a loss of support, emotional, physical, all of that. So things happen that none of us can control. And when you have questions, you need to talk to somebody who has answers and is willing to fight to get you the justice that you need. So Joe Zarzar Law, give him a call and they'll be glad to hear what you have to say.
Oh, yeah. He's got another ad that says, you're not a foul on the pile. And, Joe is so good at what he does. He could start like some of these other big firms and go, call me Florida, call me Pensacola, all that kind of silly stuff, and just hire a bunch of people to represent and do this, that, and that. He doesn't. He is here in Pensacola.
I know. We're all so grateful for that.
Yeah.
It's true.
Call me Pensacola.
Well, that's a nice transition right back into Chris Coleman.
Oh, yeah, this knucklehead.
That knucklehead seemed to have that sort of relationship going on with his mistress.
Yeah,
but I can't wait to talk about that.
We're going to get there.
So many details of that came out in the trial. But for now, we're just trying to establish like everybody's relationship. So Chris randomly gets out of the Marine Corps and goes to work for Joyce Meyer, televangelist, who I feel like is like internationally famous. Like she's broadcast in dozens of countries around the world, and lots of people love her. And so did his parents, you know, Ron and Connie. They were showing up at her conferences and her events, and they became friends. And so their titty baby son needed a job, and they didn't sell him that way to her. But anyway, she did hire him.
This guy, well, he's an ex-Marine. I've never seen a Marine.
He was a titty baby in disguise.
Yes, I've never seen a Marine do that, man or woman Marine.
I know.
You know, and then
It's pitiful.
I mean, they like improvise, adapt, and overcome. They don't start whining around for everything, and so
whine and text and kill.
Right, there you go. That's how he does. But you know, his mom said, Chris is a joy. He's a mama's joy. And just way weirdo. Yeah, way weirdo involved there. So he basically gets out of the Marine Corps for some reason or another. And then he gets this cushy $100,000 job doing security for Joyce Meyer Ministries. And keep in mind, Joyce Meyer has 900 employees, okay?
Golly.
She is not running around sniffing behind him, going, "What are you doing?" You know, because
she's an industry.
Yeah. Oh, she is an executive too. I like Joyce Meyer. She's not my favorite Bible teacher because I like Lisa Harper or I like Jessica Legrand or a few of those kind of. Priscilla Shirer, those are my girls.
Yes, a little softer.
A little softer. And so, but there he is making this $100,000, and so he gets promoted to be her bodyguard, and he goes with her at book signings and on conferences. When she
travels with her,
when she travels out of the country, he has to go. Sometimes he has to go ahead of time to make sure the security's locked down. Joyce Meyer is going to get hate mail from people because there's some people who don't like folks talking about the Lord, and some people that just don't like her. And Chris, he always kind of had a little side jab, her and go, well, she got a $10 million private plane, a $2 million house, a $137,000 Mercedes, and her kids have homes and this, that, and the other. Well, go ahead and learn how to be an evangelist and you go up there and do it. Not that, I mean, that's not my issue. If you're working for her, and she's paying you $100,000 to open the books for her to sign to Molly or to Pam.
Right.
That's what you're doing for $100,000. Shut up.
I know. It seems like money was his big obsession. Like that's how he measured success.
Oh, yeah.
And he resented and was jealous of her.
Oh, yeah.
Because on the flip side, I thought it was interesting reading where his wife Sheri felt like he had an emotional attachment to her or was having an emotional affair with her because he would even brag to the family like we talked about. I know her panty size. I know her dress size. I know this. I must be close to her.
Yeah.
So he was living vicariously trying to absorb that fame and that success and recognition and resentful of it at the same time, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, and resentful of Joyce's son, Danny. And he didn't think any other men were like, so there's this high-end lifestyle she's got. Charismatic preacher, Bible teacher, minister, she tells herself as, I am a Bible teacher. And that's what she says. That's what she is. Even when she was deposed for this, and we'll get through that in a minute, but she was cool as a cucumber and honest as she could be, about him. Because he said, well, the reason that I got to kill these kids of mine and this wife here is because Joyce Meyer fired me for, having an affair with this old girl over here. And that is not true because Joyce Meyer herself said, we have plenty of people that work for us that have a divorce. However, the issue is if it was the case of immorality and an adulterous affair while you're married, that's how she said it, then most likely you will be dismissed.
Yeah. I think he just couldn't take responsibility for what he really wanted to do and who he really wanted to be. So he just got, made excuses for it with the help of his enabling parents that he was a good boy and he wasn't a good boy.
Right. And they said gentle and all this stuff. Well, that's what we're talking about on May 5th of 2009. That's when the event happened.
Good boy image was shattered.
Right.
And he wanted but he still couldn't accept that. He wanted everybody to believe that he was just this great guy. Well, let's rewind a little bit to the the anonymous threats that the family was receiving, because this came up at his trial. It's as if he were trying to build a case for himself, straw man, as you like to say, where no, it wasn't me when my family's found dead. We'd been receiving all these threats, and it was from an email that was called Destroy Chris.
Yeah, at Gmail.
Exactly. And I read just a great article in the St. Louis magazine that came out around 2011 from a reporter that covered the whole case. And she even interviewed a psychologist, if you will, for a little take on it. Just, you know, without having interviewed this man, he wasn't going on the record for saying this is an absolute diagnosis. But he did note that that email address, Destroy Chris, in light of the decisions that he made, could have been his way of saying, I don't want to be this person that everybody thinks that I am. I want to be this big, strong, horny man that masturbates in the shower and sends videos to his girlfriend and kills his kids.
Right. And I go, and so I can embarrass Joyce Meyer and everybody else that's trying to do the next right thing, because it doesn't matter, because I'm me and you're you.
Because as long as I can tear down everybody else, and I look so much better in my own mind.
Right.
Apparently.
So there were all these crazy things, sort of like, tell Joyce Meyer to quit teaching the bullshit. And then, or if not, you and your family are going to get killed. Chris and his family, that's what it said. And this, that, and the other. So with all these things going on, and they were awful. There was awful language in there. It was nasty. It was the F word this way and that way and the other way. And, you know, saying denounce the Lord in public. And I mean, these are
like
things.
a rant.
Right. And so that's
Threat/rant.
Exactly. That's like several months before all this. Well, on May the 4th, the day before all this, little Garett was down at a neighbor's house, and his little friend Brandon there.
Yeah, he wanted a little sleepover because he just turned 11.
Right. And the mother said, hey, ask your parents. And you and Gavin come stay with Brandon here on May 4th there. So he goes home and asks his daddy, and he said, no, I got something special planned tonight.
Oof.
So he wouldn't let him go there. And the mother down there was confused, because she said he never does that. You know, he lets them come all the time down here. But see, also on May the 4th, with him saying all this stuff is coming to my mailbox and to my inbox and to Joyce Meyer and Danny Meyer and stuff, the neighbor across the street from him is a detective.
He gets assigned to the case.
Yeah,
he ends up interviewing him.
Right. But before all that, he said, let me do something here. He goes up to his child's room and puts a camera that's right on Chris's mailbox.
Yeah,
there.
because another police officer had reported these threats, which is interesting because he said he knew Chris well enough to wave to him, but Chris didn't come to him with the complaints. And I'm not saying that's an indictment at all, but it is interesting in light of how everything worked out. If he is setting up a motive, he doesn't want to report it to the really smart detective living on his street that Mike could see through his crap.
Right.
But that guy was like, okay, well, if my neighbor's having trouble, let me set up a camera and see if I can catch who this culprit is that's sending these threatening emails.
Right. He was smarter too. I think anybody on the street was smarter than Chris Coleman.
The family dog.
Yeah, right. Lizard.
The family leopard.
Yeah. I can't believe I said that. But
From the leopard quality.
So the sleepover. And then then on May the 5th, I guess that the night before on May 4th, Sheri had made a little dinner. She had made like chicken and pasta and cut up some pizza and put it in there and stuff. So that'll be important a little bit later. But he basically was out throwing ball with the boys and said, in that special night, they're going to the snow cone place. So we got a little bit about that coming up later too. But so he gets up on 5/5/2009. And at 5:43, he pulls out of his own driveway. And at about 5:43 and a half, he decides he's going to call Sheri to wake her up. You just left the house. You're in your own driveway. So then she doesn't wake up. And then so he goes to the gym to work out, and he makes sure to text her or call her a couple of times and leave some of these texts, honey, wake up, and all this kind of stuff. And so she doesn't wake up or doesn't answer the phone. So he calls some of those men that live around there that are detectives and policemen and goes, hey, can someone do a welfare check on my wife? She won't answer the phone. I mean, I don't answer the phone sometimes if I ain't in the house and don't hear it ring.
Right.
You know?
How to say I'm creating an alibi without saying I'm creating an alibi.
Right. Exactly. So they go down there to check. And so by that time, and he's just a few minutes away from the house, he took the long way home. He comes up there. Well, they go in, and they don't get an answer, so they go around back. There's a window open
in the basement.
Yeah, and the screen off is women. And they see that. So they go in the house, and the first thing they smell is the smell of like paint or like paint thinner or something like that. And they're like, and then they see on the walls there that they see all this stuff, red stuff like, I told you so.
F you.
That, and the, called whore, all this awful stuff, just a bunch of it up there. And so, you know how the Charles Manson and them wrote in the red blood from people? This was candy apple red spray paint. So all that was there. So they're like, what the heck? And so he pulls up, and these two inside, his neighbors that are very smart guys, they're like, don't let him in here. You know, so
because he might be the one who did it.
Yeah, that's what they might be thinking. So they go upstairs and they discover Sheri. She has been strangled to death
with a cord of some kind.
Yeah, or maybe his hands too. You know, so she has a black eye and she's got the striations here, and they say that she fought for her life, and I think she scratched him in the situation there. They're asleep. So then he goes to Gavin, the baby one, and he strangles him. And then he writes the F word across his sheets, and some of the paint gets on him. This makes me so upset. Then he goes to Garett, and he strangles him to death. And people are like, well, wonder why they didn't scream or why didn't they run or anything. And here's
was their daddy.
Right. This is my thought too. Exactly.
They loved him. They didn't expect him to kill him.
Why would they? That's their daddy sitting on their bed and they're just there. He said he just read one of them a Bible story or bedtime story the night before and helped them with their little prayers. And the mother put like salve on one of them doing all, he had to make sure to tell all this stuff. Women and men take care of their kids all day long without going down a laundry list of, oh, I put mupirocin on my kid's third toe. I mean, this is how this guy is. But so why would they look over there and here's what why would they do that? They look over there and go, it's just dad, you know, and he kills them.
I know. It broke my heart. I read where when police found their bodies, he was outside. They wouldn't let him come in, like you said. And it was that Detective Barlow, the neighbor, who decided, hey, don't let him in. For all we know, he could be responsible for this, and good instincts on him. So they go outside to talk to him, and they've got the police chaplain with him. And the police chaplain breaks the news to him that your family's dead. And the chaplain said he never asked how. And then he starts crying, sobbing, making a show of that. That's my take. That's not what the chaplain said.
Yeah.
But then he gets on the phone and calls his dad. And it was 2 days, by the way, before he called her family.
Oh, yeah. I know, right? Well, so, and he's out there doing all that stuff, not even asking how they died, not even trying. I know when I found out Sharon was murdered, you couldn't stop me. I got out of my car almost before it stopped rolling, ran to there, fought with everybody, screaming, hollering, and carrying on. That is not normal. And to not even ask. And here's my thing. You're head of security. You're a Marine. And you just let this happen in your house, so to speak. And you left a window open in your own house. And why would you go to the gym if you're being threatened? Man up and stay home and protect your family. So none of this made sense to anybody. And they were like, don't tell him anything.
Yeah, which was smart. Yeah. Because the other thing that chaplain said is, I think he was in the ambulance with him or about to be, and he notices the red marks on his arms. And he asked him about, and he said that he would later testify or say in deposition that Chris Coleman looked down at the red marks on his arms and said, I wonder how did that happen? And then he immediately starts hitting his hands on the gurney. And when they asked him later about the red marks on his arms, he said, oh, that was from hitting the gurney.
Right. Didn't you see me just hit the gurney, hit the pillow on the gurney? Well, brother, those are already, coming together a little bit. And you've been at the gym. Doing your stuff.
And can I make one more observation that I got from this St. Louis Magazine article? Because I just love the details that this reporter put in there. But she said that morning when the news broke and the dad was out there crying, Chris was sobbing and blah, blah, blah. His father, Ron Coleman, came pulling up and parked his car in a neighbor's yard and came running over. And to me, I get it. Again, I'm not judging. You don't know how you would react if you were in a situation like that. But brother, they're dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you got to park up in somebody's yard. That's a little self-absorbed, in my opinion.
Well, what he was, I need to get and put my hand over this perfect boy's mouth because I
teddy
know he
baby's
did
mouth,
it. You
right.
know? And then, and I mean, there's the whole road right there. He came, Joyce Meyer came, everybody came because I'm sure he called Joyce Meyer, who has 900 employees, and he's head of security. None of this makes sense. And it's also, you know, Joyce Meyer's going, what an idiot I hired here, you know, because he nothing's right. But see, he thinks he's tricking everybody.
I know. Thank goodness that he felt that way, to be honest.
Stupid. It's so
I know.
stupid.
It really is. I couldn't believe it either. I mean, except for the fact that it was just so heinous and evil, and that makes it really compelling. Like, how can somebody actually operate with a brain like this and do the things that he did and think about the things that he thought about and actually execute a plan so cruel as to choke your children and your wife to death? You know, again, as we say so many times, you could have divorced her, you could have moved on. They don't want to part with their money. He didn't want to part with his side piece. He didn't want to part with his job. So it was all the temple of himself.
Right, exactly. Well, everything, it's not the Chris Coleman show all day, every day. And there's so many people that think that everybody else is just currency in their life. I'll use you any way I can. And in their mind, okay, they think all they have to have is one person tell them they're doing great.
That was the girlfriend in this case.
Over here, this hoe girl, you know, saying all this stuff. Because even when he don't have money later, she ain't got no interest in him. She ain't got interested in him when he's with her there because she's flirting with Sheri's brother and his brother. But so they take him in and they start questioning him. He's sitting there, and I hate this term, but in that wife beater shirt he's got, I call it the wife killer shirt and the kid killer shirt. He's sitting in there and he's just like asking for a blanket to put over his arms, and you know, the pastor or the chaplain just saw him with that, and I mean, like, well, what did the pillow, was it wrapped up in steel cuttings and stuff, you know? But he thought, this is how stupid he is. He puts the blanket right here, and they said the room was hot and stuffy because he's like, you two police over there ain't seeing this right here, right? You know, dummies, you know.
Apparently, too, I guess he didn't realize there was a camera in the room, and the detectives would, you know, leave and come out of the room
like
to get new information, like they do, you know. And so they had left at one point, and this mofo gets up and looks at their notes. Like, one of them he said accidentally left his notes, but he got complimented for doing it like a brilliant move. And he was like, I'm doing it from now on purpose.
Right,
because he was just like, oh, what are they saying about me? You know, gee, that's not obvious.
Yeah, that guy said, the brilliant move I left in there. And then he said, it's now one of my new tricks, you know.
I love that.
But so they're in there with him, and he literally is whining around there like, Chris, we know that you did it. And he's like, I don't know. I mean, literally like that. I can't even do it annoying enough.
And he
right
gave
now.
them his phone.
Yeah. Oh, here's my phone. Here, first look at 1, 2, 3, where I set up a straw man. You know, I called her from my driveway. Then I came in here and said, I just got 10 more minutes of cardio. And I mean, checking in. He didn't give a about her in real life.
No, he never did that on any other day. It's not like he interrupted a regular pattern, repeat behavior.
Here's my phone.
Right.
You know, and so when he did that, they can look at everything else. That's when they found the naughty, nasty, masturbatory pictures and the pictures of her and him and the nasty talk they're doing.
And it had gone back months they'd been seeing each other.
Oh, yeah.
And this was her friend from high school.
Yeah.
Nobody she was really close with anymore, except to tell her best friends, I'm praying for her. I feel like she's making some decisions that obviously aren't, you know, in keeping with a godly lifestyle, if you will.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, I think, is that the two of them were so much alike when they were young and, you know, kind of wild, fancy free, living, fun. Yeah. But then, you know, when she got pregnant and married Chris, Sheri, she gave her heart to the Lord. She decided she didn't want to live that way anymore. She's trying to be this godly wife and mother. And then you have Tara Lentz, who is working as a cocktail waitress at the dog track in Florida. Nothing wrong with that at all. But she starts a fling with him and it becomes this all-consuming thing for sure him, maybe her too, to some extent. But to me, it just seemed like she was just getting a giant ego boost out of it all. Like grabbing her best, you know, her high school best friend's husband. Look, he wants my thing's so great, I can make a man leave his wife and kill his kids.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, you can look at their pictures. We're not idiots. You can look at the pictures. Sheri's way, way, way more a 10 than she'll ever be.
Oh, definitely. Similar type looks, though. Petite women, brunette, fun, lively. One's married to him and is working and slaving to raise his family. The other one is criticizing from the outside looking in.
Well, and see, when they're doing that, going back and forth, the cry bully baby in there. And he's, so they say, oh, well, so they're looking in the phone and go, so who's this? And these nasty little pictures here. And he say, well, it's one of my wife's friends and we just talk and stuff. And so one of them men being men, not stupid, he's like, hey, are you doing something your wife ain't gonna like? He's probably some conversations. And they're like, we see these conversations. You are nasty. And so anyway, they call St. Petersburg and go, hey, go shake her up. Go find out what's going on. Miss Thing don't give a crap about him. She's like, yeah, we have an adulterous affair.
Yeah.
And he's going to leave her. We're going to get married. We're going on vacations. He flies me out to Joyce Meyer's conferences, but I don't go to the conferences. We just meet in the hotel room and do nasty, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was Joyce Myers, I would be so mad at him. I still would be mad at him.
He flew her out to Hawaii. He flew her out, was it to Vegas?
Yeah.
Or there was another conference.
Phoenix too.
Phoenix,
and to act like she's going for that. But I mean, for him flying her all around, you bitching about money, you got kids at home. And so, I mean, it's what happens to people's brain when they start thinking with the wrong head.
Yeah, it became his whole existence for living,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Well, I mean, like, he probably had to find some nasty to match up with him because, like, he's just not nothing, you know.
Yes.
I just don't like him, as you can tell. I get in these things and I don't like these people.
Well, he doesn't have anything to offer. And from everything I read, she was giving him an ultimatum because he was becoming more and more attached to their relationship, for lack of a better way to put it. Their sexual relationship seemed to be the main driving force. And he didn't want to give it up. And she was basically saying, well, if this isn't going to go anywhere, if you're not going to leave your wife, if you're not going to serve her with divorce papers. And I think like May 4th or 5th had been like the deadline around their abouts. And so that seemed to be, he's like, he would rather kill his family than to lose his side piece.
Right.
Because I think in his mind, it seems like that represented everything who he really wanted to be.
Well, and here comes his parents again with their weirdo-ness, you know.
Yeah,
jumping
justifying
in.
all that.
And they're talking to the hoe. They're going, well, Sheri just wasn't doing what she's supposed to do for him. I'm like, are you effing kidding me, you knuckleheads, getting in all... See, when people get in the other people's marriage, there's always a problem. There should be 2 people, not 4, not 6, not 3, not 7, whatever, but they couldn't get out of it. And the thing,
and he was okay with that. He kept the door open to his parents.
Oh yeah,
the family.
Yeah, and they did that, but they liked her, but did not like Sheri.
Yeah, and I think that all stemmed from the first time he ever met her. To me, I can't help but think that it has something to do with that whole family dynamic seems extremely narcissistic. Like maybe there's some Oedipus things going on with the mom and the son. The dad, I don't know, just blech.
Yeah,
nobody's manning up in that whole family. But, of course they're going to target her because she's the first one that took him out of the nest, if you will.
Yeah.
And with her short shorts and her worldly ways. Well, hell, she wasn't whoring around with a married man.
Never.
She wasn't giving him ultimatums that tipped this crazy mofo over the edge where he had to go kill his whole family. Yet she's the bad one because she's not towing the party line.
Right.
She's not carrying their message. She probably wasn't controllable.
Yeah.
And they sensed that Tara Lentz was probably, even though it was a lie and a front, she was acting like she agreed with everything that they said.
Right.
She was Chris's biggest cheerleader when he was giving absolutely nothing. In Sheri's eyes, he's probably this husband and this man that he wanted applause for basically just getting up and breathing in the morning. And she's like, doing all of those things too. Like she loved him by all accounts. She was crazy about him. But, just everything that I read, he was dismissive of her. He was not affectionate. He occasionally beat her is what she told some of her friends. He was angry at her because I think in his mind, she reflected back all the ways he was inadequate as a husband and as a father. And she wasn't wrong. Not that she was doing it on purpose. She just probably wanted normal things from him. Help out.
Right.
Appreciate what I'm contributing. Be a father to your sons. Don't just be a dictator and tell them what to do. And he did play ball with them and he was there for them in some ways, but other times family and friends would say that he was just too strict with them. So he doesn't have to deal with any of those responsibilities with the hoe,
No, she don't care.
With Tara, he just gets to be, oh, wow, what about my penis?
Yeah.
Do you want to see it again?
That's funny because that's
over and over.
That's in one of those things.
That makes me a real man, and she's not holding up that mirror of day-to-day responsibility as a father and a provider and a husband.
Yeah. Well, and Sheri had called Danny Meyer, Joyce Meyer's son. And so Joyce Meyer heard about this. Somehow she knew the marriage was rocky. Joyce Meyer went to him and recommended marriage counseling for them on her dime with one of their pastors. Okay. She can't do any more than this stuff for this knucklehead, you know? And
she can't be a husband for him.
Right. And so they go to it and he just tells them what they want to hear and he'd come home and be hateful to her, you know? So they act, and these people, their parents, Ron and Connie, act like, you know, he's Saint Chris and Jonathan of Arc, you know, just like he's some special somebody.
Yeah.
But so she tried, and Joyce Meyer's tried. Everybody tried. So when he goes back to work, he's kind of distracted. He's not doing his best because he's chasing after that woman, Ho, with his nose wide open for nothing but that.
Yes.
He's not doing good in his job. I mean, Joyce can get killed with people coming after her and stuff. They do get legitimate threats, not like these he's doing. But I mean, think about, we know that he's the one that wrote these because the police, the same bunch that knew he killed her and the babies, is that they found out that those emails were coming from, guess what? Joyce Meyer's Mission laptop that he had.
Yes, his own computer. I thought that was interesting. Yeah, because he does end up getting charged with 3 counts of murder for killing Sheri, for killing his sons, Garett and Gavin. And when he goes to trial, that was such an interesting read about what happened during trial. The prosecution, I think, put on 5 days of testimony or so. And then the defense, it's their turn and they have 2 witnesses, you know, and their witnesses are, one is that linguistics expert, which I think is interesting because that, you know, when it comes to the trial, that linguistics played a big role because basically each side had their own expert taking a look at the writing that was on the wall and then also the writing, and also the writing that was in those threatening emails. And they found patterns, like misspellings were the same between what Chris would actually write, what was misspelled, phrasing, and just the very tone was similar. And I thought it was great when he only had 2 witnesses that he called, like I said, and one of them was the linguistics expert who basically said, the writing on the wall is so inconsistent as if to be someone who is trying to disguise their handwriting.
And that's his
And that was his own witness. Good Lord.
Yeah.
He'd all but given up in my mind.
Oh, yeah. Well, so they got 2 people. But like I said, the prosecution, they even showed a bunch of those nasty videos he did because he loved doing those with her.
The one of him masturbating and saying, I've never done this before, baby.
Yeah.
I just got off the phone with you and I've still got it going and I'm going to do. And I was like, oh, and they played it for the whole court.
Oh, yeah.
And his parents said that they were just mortified and felt like that he had been maligned by them playing that. I'm like, how about the fact that he did it? They wanted to blame his wife, Sheri, for sending the threatening notes. Like, talk about bending over backwards to excuse this murderous bastard.
Oh, he's horrible. Well, and the writing was in like candy apple red, like the Mansons did, you know, in blood. The Mansons misspelled stuff too. Remember, they're so dumb. Their own daggone word. Helter skelter. They wrote helter skelter.
It's bad enough to be killed, but to be killed by a misspelling idiot is just like, talk about salt in the wind.
Right. Well, see, he misspelled opportunities, and then he would put an apostrophe, you know, where you have a contraction. It's WON apostrophe T. With this dummy, WONT apostrophe.
Good Lord.
You know, and then he misspelled the word FAGGOT. He spelled it IT, and some more stuff he had. And then when he was doing, I mean, him and her just bumping uglies on videos
but he's
and
a
stuff.
Christian, Pam. He's a good boy. And she wore shorts, Sheri did, when they first met.
Oh, yeah. And she had a tattoo, and guess what? Joyce Meyer has 2 tattoos. She does. She got one.
The tatted Bible teacher. I love it.
Tatted up hip Bible teacher. Hers up here, this one says, I belong to Jesus. And the one on her foot ankle says love. And so she's all right with that. She ain't asking nobody else about that. But I mean, so he's acting like all this kind of stuff with her. So they're bumping uglies. The parents are acting, we can't stand to listen to this video. Lord help us. I mean, praying about that instead of
pray that the Lord would give them strength not to stand up, to be able to sit there and be there for their son. And I'm like, how about strength that he takes responsibility and has remorse? Prayer for his soul. What kind of a man kills his 2 helpless sons that adore him? Good Lord, lady. Are you just jealous he didn't marry you?
I think there's some weirdness there. But also with all that, when he's doing that other one when he's doing the masturbatory one.
Ugh.
It's just gross, but I'm sorry. But he goes something about, oops, I dropped the soap. I hope I didn't drop this. And I'm like, buddy, you just prognosticated your future. They ain't even got to be no soap because you fixing to be everybody's bumping ugly.
That's right. His dance card will be full forever behind bars.
I mean, I'm just looking at that. He's just a sick old miscreant, And so then they said that Sheri slept with a Glock by her bed because she was an MP.
On her tabletop, right. The bedside table.
Right. So he couldn't come in there and act like it was a shooting or something. She'd have that. But the opportunities for him to do that to her, he had to think on this for a long time. He had to think on this, what to write. That's terrible, all that stuff he wrote in those things and the things he texted. The things he wrote on the wall are even awful. Some of these grown men won't even tell us what it was because I think we said earlier, he wrote F-U-C-K across the baby's blankets there when he choked him.
Well, and I know Tara Lentz was never charged with having any involvement whatsoever. So there's no indication from evidence or from the police that she knew anything about that. But I can't help but wonder what she did know as far as like what he was planning, what he was doing, and what she thought may or may not have been his role when it turns out that the family died.
Yeah. Oh, she's not no good girl. He would take pictures of Sheri while she's sleeping, maybe with her mouth open or something, unflattering, so they could laugh and giggle about it, making fun of her, And then basically what also got him in trouble is they also found out by the police interviewing him, they said, do you have any pain at your house? He's like, what? No, I don't know. It might be a what? I mean, it's just aggravating. And so what they do is they go find out at one of the hardware stores, guess what? There's a receipt for some candy apple red spray paint a couple of months ahead. So he's been thinking about this for a long time.
And his parents tried to say that was spray paint for a target that he was making for one of the boys.
Right, exactly. So there's Target, all right. It was on the boys and the wife. And then here's the other thing they discovered too, because he's saying, I was gone. I was at the gym and I was texting and stuff. On the way to the gym, they found where a can of paint and the facing for their cameras. Think about this. He's a security person. You should have cameras in your house. I do. You do. And so, but that tape recording part was gone on there. And also, Dr. Michael Bodden, he is the one that said this didn't happen at no 5:43 or 6. They were killed between 3 and 5 because of the rigor mortis that had set in. And this part just makes me, I can't even get it out of my head. He said, because their skin was mottled and even Sheri's leg was kind of like
stiff.
Yeah, up in the midair. And the boys were stiff like that. And they said the skin was like the skin, how they know this, I don't know, of a dinosaur.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, and her leg was in midair when they turned her over because she was laying with her head hanging off the bed. And when they pulled her over, her rigor mortis had set in and the leg was up. Yeah,
right.
That whole thing was awful.
Yeah.
But that was when they arrested him because that basically was, they were suspicious anyway, but that gave him the final bit of evidence because he was saying he was home up until he left and called from the driveway and they were alive. And when they could prove that lie, by the medical examiner saying, maybe close to 5. He goes, but for sure it was between, closer to 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's when they arrested him.
Right.
But it was interesting because I think she had a little bit of DNA underneath her fingernails, but it wasn't enough to prove that it was him, but neither did it rule him out. So it was inconclusive, but it didn't rule him out. That with the linguistics and then the string of witnesses that the prosecution called, that basically it was anecdotal. And I think the defense really pushed hard to not get any of that testimony allowed because they were saying different friends. She basically gave everybody the full story, but she told each person a different piece of it, whether it was her close friends, whether it was the counselor, whether it was another pastor, just people that she worked with within the ministry. And together they basically painted this picture for the jury of an unhappy marriage where she knew he resented her. She knew he was unhappy with her. She was working hard. She wanted to make him happy. But he was beating her. He was critical of her. He was not affectionate. He was strict with the boys, although she said they adored him and he could be a good father at times. At any rate, if I'm the jury, I'm going to sit back and say, okay, this is insane. And they saw the pictures on his phone of he and Tara together. She's biting his cheek in one picture. There's another picture where he's kissing her cheek close to the lips. And she just looks like the cat that ate the canary in every picture. And he just looks like he's got it dripping off his ears.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
so I think they did a great job of painting his motive. Like he wanted to be with this side piece, and he wanted to keep his, lucrative job. He was resentful of his wife for her spending, but it was okay for him to spend on the mistress. So at any rate, I think that they did a good job of painting what could have been his motive, what was his motive, because he was convicted. But at any rate, I thought that was that it was interesting that finally, when the prosecution rested their case, they didn't have anything to say. Really, just two witnesses.
No. And when Tara was up there on the stand, she was telling it all, man, and she was like, well, we got promise rings for each other like they're 7 years old. And I got mine on today on the stand up there. And
so disrespectful.
We were going to get married. We got our wedding registry going on. And then when we get married and we're going to have our first daughter, her name's going to be Zoe. And I mean, it is just so sick. But this is what we find out about people. If they wanted to, they would, okay? Because he can do anything, spend all the money for this woman, plan to have other children. You've got two beautiful ones right here that everybody said were sweet and kind and wonderful. And Garett was a little more studious, and Gavin was fun and social butterfly like his mama. And that she was basically, she loved SpongeBob and little MASH and Walking on Sunshine, those kind of things like that.
I know. I thought it was sweet that her friend made her ringtone whenever Sheri would call. Her friend that made a song for her call as I Got a Pocket Full of Sunshine.
Yeah, because she did with her. And then and when they fought before, she told Chris, I am not going to divorce you. You are going to have to kill me.
And he said, okay.
They took it for the truth. And then she told people, like you said, if anything happens to me, how come every one of these stories, we get that in here and they say, if anything happened to me, he did it.
I know. And yet it still happens.
Yeah. They trying to give me lasagna. And lasagna's my favorite. But I mean, it's got arsenic in it.
Note to self. Okay. Pam needs to be poisoned. Lasagna it is.
Me and Garfield. so anyway, it was just so crazy that, and then in the trial, it was stuck. There's almost like a hung jury.
I know that irritated me, but go ahead. Yeah.
Almost like a hung jury. And like we were talking about, it might have been half and half or 5 or 7 or whatever one way.
They found out later, but for sure at the time they only knew it was like one holdout.
Right. Like 11-1. And they were just like, I was a stubborn person in there, and that's okay.
Sometimes I think people just want attention too. But maybe not in this case. I don't know.
Who knows? Because there's a lot of pressure. I've been on a couple of juries, and
you don't want to put a man away for the rest of his life or possibly face the death penalty if you're not sure. I get that.
Do your thing. If that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to do. I don't want to push people on that.
Right.
But so what they said, they were like, guys, we're getting upset with these bunch or this one or whatever. So they're just in the jury room looking around through stuff and flipping over, just happened to flip over a picture. And on there, it said 10 of 2008. Well, Tara had just told him up on the stand, we didn't get together as couple of the year, to the people that we think we're the greatest thing since sliced bread, that until November of 2008. So whatever it was, that is all it took for that juror to go, oh, get the hell all the way out of here.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting too. And it was a picture of the two of them together. And it basically showed in black and white that they had been together 2 months before she said, and they said that was the nail in the coffin as to wanting to convict him. And they found him guilty of all 3 counts.
Right.
I think that was so interesting. I'm like, well, that's, why couldn't you just believe to me but anyway, whatever. I'm glad that they came to that conclusion.
We all have different thought processes and, and women think differently than men, but isn't it something, this guilty, when he was convicted, was exactly 2 years after the day that he killed them.
I think that's wonderful. And I do wonder, if his wife was smiling down with those boys on either side of her going, justice for our family.
Yeah, I pray so. And then their community was so good. They set up memorials and they were trying. Can you imagine? They're all thinking, is somebody going to come kill us in our house?
Oh, speaking of that, in the article that I read from the St. Louis Magazine, they talked about the neighbor, the one who had invited the boys to come over for the sleepover. And the dad said, no, I got to kill them tonight. They can't come.
Yeah, right, basically.
So that same neighbor had basically left a memorial on Mother's Day, started a little memorial, and other people had left teddy bears, cards, balloons, and their little family had gone over there. And so she lived close by. She could see the house. And after they had set it up and had been out there for a little bit, she saw Chris come out and throw it away in the trash can.
Oh, yeah. Didn't even let it be morning. He just wanted to, like I said, if they wanted to, they would.
He wanted to erase the family as if they never existed and just make it about his penis and Tara and let them live happily ever after with his $100,000 a year.
Right. And this was like 20 years ago. So that was good, 100 grand back then, especially. But he couldn't just be happy being a deadbeat dad or having an affair and this, that, and the other. I mean, he wanted to do everything he wanted to do and pay zero consequences.
Mm-hmm. And his parents felt the same way.
They're still blaming Sheri, acting like it's a conspiracy theory.
Connie's blaming him from hell. I mean, wherever she is.
Yeah, she's not here anymore. Yeah.
Right. And I don't know where she is. I don't claim to be an expert on the afterlife.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, that's a mama I certainly don't want to follow in her footsteps.
Yeah. And then Sheri's mama, like you said, they didn't even call her for 2 days. My son killed your daughter and our grandchildren and didn't even call her. That's how they were. They were buried there in the town where they live. And her mother went to great expense and great fighting. I don't want them buried over there near y'all people. That's all that is. So they got exhumed and brought over to Chicago area, closer to her mother. So there's a lot of little other stuff too here.
Yeah, they filed a civil suit. Her family, Sheri's family, filed a civil suit against him.
And Joyce Meyer and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you one thing. Joyce Meyer is a composed, truth-telling lady. I was so proud of her on there because, like, you can tell she knows. She's probably been deposed many times because she's like professional in all the things there. But she told the truth. Basically, we're not going to fire him for that. You know,
not for a divorce, but we'd certainly fire him for extramarital affair. And then just being no nonsense on the stand, talking about how he was off. You know, she knew something was off because he was missing work. He was calling in at least once, and his parents were still making excuses for that. They was like, "No, he calls in all the time." It wasn't the first time he ever called out because he called her directly. And I guess normally he calls her husband and couldn't get a hold of him.
Right.
Anyway, whatever the deal was, they were still making excuses.
She doesn't handle
for him.
that. She don't handle all that.
Well, despite his conviction, and he did not get the death penalty because basically Illinois law was in the process of making that not an option, which it's not an option now. And so I think the judge, he decided he didn't want the jury to decide his punishment. So he just left it in the hands of the jury. In the hands of the judge. And the judge decided to give him life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This guy is still trying to get out.
Oh, yes.
He's filed motion after motion from the time he got convicted to as recently as 2019. Pulling excuses out of the hat, basically, it's like a rabbit out of a magician's hat. He's like, no, I got an incompetent attorney. They should have questioned those the dates behind those pictures. Some of those weren't accurate. It's what swayed the jury.
Right.
He wasn't saying that particular date was inaccurate, though.
Yeah. Life in prison without parole ×3. And it said that there are people crazy enough to be writing to him like they do with Chris Watts, writing to him going, hey, let's talk about the spiritual journey here. Oh, you're talking about the one where I killed my kids? I don't want to talk about that. How about the one where you killed? No, I don't want to talk about that. How about this? How about when you cheat? I don't want to talk about that. How about when you talk crap about your boss? I don't want to talk about. So, I mean, who in the dum-dum is writing him for any advice?
I can't imagine. It's somebody who apparently wants to be as horrible as he is.
Not hard.
It's a low bar. Oh, man. Well, hopefully that family is moving on to the best of their ability. As you know, that's impossible. Life will never be the same. But at least that they know they got some justice.
Right. Definitely. Awesome. This one's giving me a headache.
It is. It's sad. All right. Well, thank you, Pam. I appreciate you coming in and talking about this one with us. And special shout out to reporter Jeanette Cooperman, who wrote A Family Erased, the Chris Coleman story for the St. Louis Magazine that I referenced so much. That article came out in 2011. It was good. And thanks to our listeners and those watching on the Gulf Coast Confidential YouTube channel. That is it for Epic Fail. Ex-Marine and Joyce Meyer bodyguard Chris Coleman fails to protect his own family. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher Pam Hill. And a big thanks, as always, to our director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. Remember, you can check out our episodes of Gulf Coast Confidential wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, as well as watch on our YouTube channel. Just don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time, y'all. This episode is brought to you by Zarzar Law.